Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. The new season is upon us. Doesn't it feel like it's been forever? So, how are you doing with your blank slate? Personally, I think I've had maybe nearly 100 drafts. I watch a preseason game, I make a difference. I make another change. I make another change. I watched Rancesinho the other day. I put a change. I watched Man City the other day. I put Ziolis in. I'm like, Havertz is looking good. Arsenal defense is looking good. Should I move from Gabriel to Calafiori? Oh, goodness. It's a kind of torment which makes you wish the season could just start already. Having said all that, aren't you glad Salah is not here? Can you imagine the headache that would have been there if Salah was here? Because we can't let go of the past. Looking at the prices, seeing Haaland 15 makes you wonder what kind of price Salah would have been. Maybe, okay, but I think it would have been like 10. But he would have still brought a lot of confusion. Saka might bring confusion. Of course, Bruno is bringing confusion. And then Gabriel, a lot of confusion. I guess we should start off this by asking, what is the best approach to fantasy at this point in time? It's the first day, first game week, opening round. And therefore, we really have nothing to go on. There's so many unknowns. For example, almost half of the teams have a new manager. So it means that even judging by pre-friendlies, it's tough to know what we are getting. Too many teams are in transition. Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and the list just goes on. Spurs. And then you have the additional fact that the World Cup happened and some players haven't really been able to show themselves in preseason or to prove match fitness, which then creates a complication of team dynamics. And therefore, we haven't really seen any team at its truest form, maybe except Brentford. And then also there's a dead pressure of they've not really played the opposition they're going to play. And that makes choosing a team a little bit more difficult than it usually would have been. There are new promoted sides, and we don't know what they're going to do. Is there a new Sunderland? Is it going to be Coventry? Is it Ipswich? Is it Hull? With so much uncertainty, I decided to go for the tried and tested. And by that I mean Haaland has been the top scorer for the last nearly 4 seasons. Therefore, Haaland is in my team. Bruno Fernandes was great under Carrick. He is in my team. Gabriel was solid at the back for Arsenal, and Arsenal looked great against Manchester City. He's in my team. I decided to have a high-value player in each sector of the field, apart from goal, so that if they fail to deliver, it is easy to swap from them to somebody else. As opposed to, let's say, I start with Calafiori, who scored against Manchester City. And then on opening day, Gabriel scores 2 goals, and then I'm like, he's the man I should have had. And then I try to bring him on. I wouldn't even know how to get him without losing 2 or 3 points. And I'd probably have to sacrifice a midfielder because there's no defender who's worth 8.0. And so for me, there's value in starting high and then moving down, instead of starting low and then trying to figure out how to get to a Haaland, how to get to a Fernandes, how to get to a Gabriel. Now, of course, when you have so many players eating your budget, it means you've given up on some other players, and which is why I'm happy Salah isn't here, because I would have been trying to figure out having Salah and Haaland and maybe Bruno in one team and then some Arsenal defender. So right now I'm wondering, who is my player? Who is my goalkeeper? Are there any players who are playing out of position? And by that, for example, I mean, I watched Fulham the other day, and I saw Sessegnon playing on the wing, and is now classified as a defender. And if this holds to be true, he will be of great value to me. Now, of course, if you believe in having a high value player in every position, Raya is your most obvious candidate for goalkeeper. But Spurs could be interesting because they have really shored up everything. The midfield looks more secure. They've gotten 2 new defenders. So they're looking much more solid at the back. They let Vicario go, so you know Kinski is going to be the keeper. He is valued at 4.5, which makes him a great steal. Now, with fantasy, you have to take it 1 week at a time, but also have an eye on the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that you want to win the whole competition, which is 38 weeks. So you can't plan 1 week at a time. You can plan for a particular week, especially when there are double game weeks and things like that. But at the beginning, you need to look at the next 2 to 3 game weeks. So when you're planning for game week 1, have game week 2 and 3 in mind. So what does that mean? Let's go by this list and we'll figure it out. Arsenal, for example, start with Coventry, which is a fairly easy game on paper, although Frank Lampard is no pushover. And then they play Aston Villa and Chelsea. Now, Chelsea have a new manager. They're playing Frank Lampard, who we don't know if it's a new Sunderland or not. So, in theory, they could be having 2 or 3 potentially tricky fixtures, depending on how you want to see it. Aston Villa play Brighton, Arsenal, and Hull, and those are tricky fixtures for Aston Villa, so I wouldn't encourage you to get into them. Bournemouth face Man City, Everton, and Newcastle. Bournemouth have a new manager. Will he be able to bring out what Iraola brought out of these players? We don't know. So this makes all of their fixtures uncertain. Brentford have Tottenham, Leeds, and Sunderland. Brentford are a stable team. They might be worth getting into. I would honestly consider getting into like a Ouattara, Thiago, or an Ayer. Brighton play Aston Villa, Chelsea, and Leeds. Now, we don't know what Chelsea looked like, but based on last season, these games will be competitive. And therefore, if you have Brighton defenders, this might not be the game. But it might be the game to have midfielders. You know, Welbeck is gone now because Chelsea buy all of the Brighton players. So we need to see what they look like up front as well. Chelsea have Fulham, Brighton, and Arsenal. Now, Chelsea's preseason has been unconvincing at best and disappointing at worst. And so we don't know. Is this guy going to be somebody closer to Maresca or somebody close to Potter? And by Potter, I mean a manager with a good reputation, who has a good history of performance, but is not going to be given any time. Only time will tell. Coventry have Arsenal, Hull, and Manchester City. Such incredibly difficult fixtures, however you look at them. And it might not even be fair to judge them up until after Man City, when they start playing regular teams instead of the best and second best in the league, you know. Crystal Palace have Everton, Man City, and Fulham. Crystal Palace are another team in transition. New manager, does this mean they'll play the same way? We don't know. All we do know is Strand Larsen has been playing all the preseason games, but is it because Mateta went to the World Cup? We shall find out. Everton play Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and Man United. I just trust Moyes, and therefore I'm more inclined to start with an Everton player, or at least 2 of them. I'm definitely having Ndiaye. After that, I might have Tarkowski because I missed his points last season, and this is just me trying to start off on the right foot with him. Fulham have Chelsea, Sunderland, and Crystal Palace. Fulham are another team with a new manager, and they lost Harry Wilson and Raul Jimenez. So what are they? How will they play? I liked Sessegnon playing at the midfield, classified as a defender. But will that continue? Was it just an experimentation? We shall find out. Hull City are playing Man United, Coventry and Arsenal. Now, we don't know whether these three teams will stay up or will be deleted. And by deleted, I mean relegated. We simply don't know, so it's hard to bank on them. Ipswich play Sunderland, Man United and Liverpool. Those are difficult fixtures. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, so I would steer clear of them. Leeds have Forest, Brentford and Brighton. Now, given how Leeds finished the season, if they start the same way, they could end up in the top 10. And if you believe that to be true, then you have to be looking at Mecha, Okafor and Calvert-Lewin. Liverpool have Newcastle, Forest and Ipswich. Now, this all depends on how quickly you believe Liverpool will adjust to Iraola, if they do, and how much time. And so we know he likes his wing-backs, we know he likes his wide players. So does this mean Kerkez, Frimpong, Gakpo, Isak are going to be kings from Liverpool? Does this mean McAllister and Szoboszlai won't be as important? We just have to wait and find out. Man City have Bournemouth, Crystal Palace and Coventry. Haaland. I know they didn't look great, but you just have to have Haaland. Maybe don't bank on their defense because they just got hammered 3-0 and Donnarumma was jumping too quick. But Haaland, Man United, have Hull, Ipswich and Everton. Now, those are great three opening fixtures. Hull are good, Ipswich are good, Everton, competitive. In theory, like you see now, we're just judging that a top team versus a bottom team. Yet, Manchester United have been poorly defending in the preseason. So even if the defense, like Shaw, is 4.5, does that mean that they're good? I don't know. But you do know that they will attack well. So I started off with Lamens in one of my drafts, but then after watching them concede 4, concede 1, concede 2, I was just like, no, I can't have Man United defenders. Of course, they may show things up, but that's the problem of preseason. You can't really tell. But Fernandes and your choice of Kunyam, Bemo, maybe Dogu are good for opening the week. Newcastle have a new manager. Now, they play Liverpool, Tottenham and Bournemouth. Honestly, those opening fixtures. Newcastle have also lost valuable players. Gordon, Tonali, Guimaraes. They've brought in a lot of young players. How long will it take them to get together? It's not clear. So I would discourage you from getting their players even if they have a manager of high reputation. Nottingham Forest have a new manager as well. And they start off with Leeds, then they take on Liverpool and Tottenham. Now, Leeds should be an open game, but Liverpool and Tottenham will be much more difficult. But also, we are yet to see what Tottenham are when the team starts. They've been poor for the last 2 seasons. It doesn't mean they're suddenly great, even though they do have a much improved roster and an exciting manager in De Zerbi. Now, Nottingham Forest have Glasner. Glasner did great with Crystal Palace, just as Iraola did great with Bournemouth. But they're in a new squad right now. And we don't know for sure who their favorites are or how they're going to play with what they have. And so it makes it a bit tough. Spurs round off the top. I mean, the managers of the new teams. Although De Zerbi and Carrick came in last season, if you take those two out, there are 9 new managers this season. And if you want to add them, it's 11. Spurs take on Brentford, Newcastle and Forest. Brentford are a tricky team. Newcastle might be easier for them and Forest might be easier for them. And therefore Spurs might be a good team, but we still don't know how they're going to play. How do they look? Are you noting a theme? It is hard to predict. But I will tell you this, Kinski is the clear number 1 now that they have let Vicario go on loan. So I will have him. Sunderland take on Ipswich, Fulham, and Brentford. Now, Sunderland finished the season, had a great season. There's no other way around it. They had a great season. So, Mukiele, Enzo Lefe, probably would be great for Sunderland versus Ipswich, Fulham, and then a difficult game in Brentford. So honestly, if I was just looking at this list, I would start off with Sunderland players, Manchester United players, Haaland, Everton players, and maybe Brentford players. And then just sort of and then just sort of feel and see what game week 1 looks like. And then maybe you'll have a better idea for game week 2. I mean, 9 teams have new managers. 9, that's half of the Premier League. Which means that there's so many unknown quantities that it makes it hard to know for sure what we're getting into. And that's why I would also advise you all just to start with the most expensive players you can afford and then go cheaper, because there's always somebody who's going to benefit from this. We just don't know who they are yet. This is the kind of season where you might find someone having a breakout season, kind of like Cole Palmer. It might be that's the oldest guy who had 2 assists for Arsenal. I honestly wouldn't mind starting with him. And that's why also when it comes to unknowns, I wouldn't encourage you to go for some random captain as well. I would encourage you to go for just a Bruno, Haaland, because they are known quantities. Maybe a Gabriel because of Arsenal's backline. And then also try to have a team as balanced as you can. There will be some good players from these promoted teams because we will be looking for DEFCON points. And when it comes to DEFCON, you know you want people who will be tested. And they will be tested. Now, let me add a little wrinkle into this. If I look at the opening 5 fixtures, suddenly Sunderland, Spurs, Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Leeds, Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford, and Aston Villa look more tempting. Like I've already told you, I have Haaland, Bruno, and Gabriel. That is a combined price of 35 million. Now, that same trio was worth 29 million last season. So you can see they've taken pretty much a third of my budget. Now, if you've been watching pre-season, a wiser person may tell you that it might be worth having Bumo and Fernandes on Bumo over Fernandes just because he's playing better, he's scoring, he's had a very impressive pre-season. And if I don't have him now, I'm almost talking myself into it because I've watched his pre-season and he looks good. Bruno and the rest of the World Cup players, we just don't know, and that's the frustrating part about this beginning of the season. You really have to hope and believe that things will go the way you want. When it comes to Arsenal, for example, it's clear Saliba, who got injured during the World Cup, is not going to be playing. And if we're to believe what we saw, it is Mosquera who will be playing with Gabriel. This Iolis character has had 6 assists this preseason. Thiago Schade and Dango were incredible against Stuttgart in that 7-0 win. When looking at Chelsea, it seems like João Pedro will be preferred up top, along with Rodgers and Palmer. And then there's Palestra. Ndiaye looks like he's going to be Everton's penalty taker. And that's also another thing you should be looking at as you choose your team. Who are the set piece takers? Who are most likely to have assists? Who are most likely to have penalties? Another way to do it is to say, who were the top performers last season? Up front, Haaland, 239 points. Thiago, 181 points. João Pedro, 177. Watkins, 167. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 142 points. So those are the top 5 attackers. If you're a believer in history repeats itself, then a combination of those three should be on your list. I personally have gone for Haaland or Pedro, and I went for Bobby. But now I'm thinking that maybe it should be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. When it comes to midfielders, Bruno got 235 points, Semenyo 202, Morgan Gibbs-White 188, Rice 184, and Anderson 180. Those are the top 5 midfielders. Are any of those in your team? If not, you should really think about it. When it comes to defenders, Gabriel is a top defender with 209 points. Then you have Gay with 179, Van Dijk with 175, tied with Senesi for 175. And then you have Tarkowski with 170. I have 2 of those 5 defenders. How many do you have? When it comes to goalkeepers, like I'd said earlier, Raya was a top 162 points, Kelleher 143 points, Roofs 136, Pickford 135, and Donnarumma 135. None of my keepers are within that price range because I'm going for 4.5 keepers. Let's use another metric. So far, what is the percentage ownership of players? Let me show you who the most popular players are right now. In goal, we have Raya, who has been chosen by 34% of all managers, Dubravka by 21.6%, Kinski by 21.2%, Verbruggen by 19.3%, and Lamens by 18.3%. It's interesting that both Dubravka and Kinski have been chosen so highly, yet they're both playing for the same team. It might be the value 4.5 and 4.0, but I'm thinking with Dubravka at 4.0, his value is going to be like you need a cheap keeper who might play. And in case you're wondering, my keepers are Kinski and Verbruggen. When it comes to defenders, the most owned players are Gabriel 28.9%, which makes sense given that he was last season's best defender, then Calafiori 28.4%. This might be because of Saliba's absence plus his performance the other day. Pedro Porro 22.9%, Luke Shaw 22.2%, and O'Reilly 21.5%. That rounds up the most selected defenders by percentage. When it comes to midfielders, 49.2% of us have chosen Bruno. Half of all managers playing this game, that means millions, have chosen Bruno Fernandes. Is that wisdom of the crowd or prisoner of last season? We will find out. Soboslai chosen by 41.3%. Both of those players are my team. Bumo chosen by 31.7% of us. Preseason has done something. Semenyo 26.5%. And Morgan Rogers 26.4%. When it comes to forwards, Haaland, the most chosen player in fantasy this season, chosen by 70.1% of us. João Pedro chosen by 60.6% of us. And then we have Calvert-Lewin chosen by 27.8% of us. Thiago chosen by 17.8%. And then finally Isak chosen by 15.6% of us. So if you're looking by the percentage, you can have an idea how people are choosing. Now, I guess the real philosophical ways to approach building a team. One could be you want people who will play all the time, and therefore you put in your guaranteed starters, and that might end up being an expensive team with a weak bench. You could have a balanced approach, which could mean you have players on your bench just in case your starters do not play. And then, of course, there are the people who support team A, B, or C, like my dearest brother, who will put Chelsea players no matter what they are doing. And that is one way to do it. But if that's the way you're going to do it, please follow the champions. I would say general tips is you can go with history and choose Haaland, choose Bruno, choose Arsenal defense, and then after that, wait and see. Because I believe that the defense, we don't know. With so many new managers, it's not clear how these systems will flow or work in action. We've seen them in preseason, but that doesn't mean they will work in real Premier League situations. So some will be more successful than others. If you remember last season, At the beginning, Bournemouth had lost pretty much all of their defenders, and they ended up having a great season. Brentford also lost a substantial amount of players, and they ended up having a great season, even though they were relegation favourites. I believe that kind of mentality should be respected, in that we should learn that what we see might not be what it is. And instead of judging preemptively, we should try to make our best decision based on the information we have, and then really adjust as the season unfolds. Just as we understand who these 9 managers are and how their systems work on these players, because some of them might work, some of them might fail. Arne Slot won the season he came, the next season he was fired. And the same thing that works the season before, if you move away from it, it might punish you. So we also don't know if people are going to stick to what worked to them last season. So in order to have the most flexibility, my recommendation is start with high value players and then move out of them when you find out who is doing the thing that you need done. For example, it might be Mbeumo who starts off well. He's had a great preseason. It might be Siolis who's the Arsenal threat. It might be worth having him over Saka. 6.5 versus 9. But if you start Saka, you can go down. If you start Bruno, you can go down. If you start Haaland, you can go down. And of course, there's a whole World Cup thing. Those players might not be fit. And therefore, I would say my biggest recommendation is start expensive in order to give you flexibility to move. And then also, if you can, try to stack up the transfers so that you can make the changes at a relatively cheap cost. Or if you're gangster enough, start Gameweek 2. Decide you're going to see everything Gameweek 1 and you're just going to start Gameweek 2. Or if you're one of the crazier ones, use your wildcard Gameweek 2. Or if you're like one of our friends, Don Clinton, you can just say number 1's a write-off, start heavy, and then just make all the transfers regardless of how much they cost. But that's a bit extreme. And with that, we've come to the end of this episode. I'm really excited for the season ahead. This is a new season. It is a new me. And therefore, it's a new season. It's a new you. Remember to take it 1 week at a time. And don't be too frustrated. Learn. Learn every week. Learn where you went wrong and make killer judgments. All right. Have a great rest of your week. See you on the pitch. Bye.